Is there anywhere, Rob, where you're hyper bullish might be too strong, but like very optimistic or opportunistic? KingSett has a private equity group, or all sorts of names: asset manager, institutional steward, you name it. But when there's challenges and headwinds, I feel like this is when the KingSetts, the Blackstones, the Brookfields, all these guys really capitalize. Is there anything that you're super excited about right now?
Yeah. First of all, I don't put ourselves in the same category as Blackstone, Brookfield, but that's a discussion for a different time. I mean, those guys are global investors and have a scale and that doesn't compare to what we're doing. But insofar as the Canadian market is concerned, in my 25 years of investing in real estate, there have been basically, I'd say, 2 times where you can focus on what I call spread investing. Okay. Spread investing is when you can buy an income producing building at a cap rate that's 100 to 200 basis points higher than your cost of debt, finance it, not grow income, maybe grow income like with inflation, but like, let's just call not create any real value, sell the building for what you paid for it, and make opportunity fund returns. Okay. The first time was in 2004 or 5, in sort of the lead up to what ended up being the global financial crisis, but 4, 5, 6, like in that. And now, okay, it hasn't happened since the global financial crisis. So we're finally in an environment, because with the collapse of interest rates coming out of the global financial crisis, all that whole spread investing thesis went away because cap rates collapsed.
Right.
So today, as the cost of debt has shifted, even though it's come down from where it was, but there's been a quantum shift in the cost of debt from where it was in 2022 to where it is today. The cost of equity has shifted. Sentiment around real estate has shifted. Capital flows, so particularly the attractiveness of Canada amongst the Canadian institutions, has shifted. Most Canadian institutions are overweight real estate, overweight Canada. Capital has left Canada, left real estate, and gone elsewhere. So cap rates have all moved. So when you ask me am I optimistic, I am super optimistic, because we find ourselves in a market that you can generate opportunity fund returns by taking core and core plus risk. That's the holy grail. That's literally the holy grail, because you can get 2 times return for 1 time for 1 time's risk. There's no better time to invest. And so, and it all comes back to, and this is all predicated on the assumption that you have access to capital. Okay. That's the tricky part.
Right.
You have to have access to capital. But if you have access to capital, this is the time to buy. Right now, because you can buy a 7 cap office building and finance it at 5 and just sit and have your tenants pay you rent.
It's such a beautiful thing. We've talked about this story, but in California, and they repealed that law where you could steal like up to $900 worth of stuff. And then there were viral videos of people stealing, and then they get arrested.
Right.
And they're like, what do you mean? It was just like $850. Right. Crime is now illegal again.
Right.
And so in Canada, it's like real estate now has to be cash flow positive. Yeah. Real estate actually makes money.
Right. Right. Think of over the last, it's 2025. So think of all over the last 15 years, basically since the global financial crisis. Think of all of the risk we were taking on over those years, right? Guys were out, us included. So I'm not saying that like we're smarter than anybody, but all real estate investors were out. We were buying land, we were zoning it, we were building buildings. Some guys are doing stuff on spec. Other guys, you pre-lease half a building, you think you hit a home run, so you build the whole building. It doesn't, you have to remind yourself that it's half empty, when you build it. But think of all of the risk we were taking for years and years and years. And today, you don't have to take any of it. You can go buy an apartment building. You can buy a shopping mall. You can buy an industrial building. You can buy an office building. Now, you have to be you have to have access to capital. That's part of the trick. You have to fundamentally believe that you can maintain the income.
Right.
So that's where office, the best opportunity is in office because there's so much pessimism about the operating fundamentals of office. And it's not unlike condos been painted again with a monolithic brush. So everyone thinks, well, all office buildings are bad. So, when you have that prevailing attitude that you can't maintain income in an office building, it provides a huge opportunity for those that do fundamentally believe they can maintain the income in an office building. Because if you fundamentally believe you can keep a building leased and you can buy it at a 7 cap and finance at 5, there's no better opportunity than that, I don't think.
Yeah.
At least not in the 25 years that I've been doing this.
Well, and it goes back to that old adage of, when there's blood in the streets, buy land, right?
Yeah.
Look for opportunities.
There's lots of sayings, right? The Warren Buffett, be fearful when the others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. I mean, and you see this in the private market. I mean, you'd probably see this in the multi-res space. The private investors have sort of figured this out, but this is classic. It can be symptomatic of the institutional world, right? Where they invest in themes, so institutional investors will typically make large, broad strategic calls as they sort of have to because they're managing, huge pools of capital. And so they're getting in things and getting out of things in entirety, right? And that's where they look to groups like KingSett or Blackstone or Brookfield or the rest of us. They look to other asset managers who can help them navigate some of those waters. And so an institution would have, a $20 billion real estate portfolio. They'd allocate a small slice of capital to groups like us and say, okay, now take that small slice of capital and outperform.
Right.
And so we look for things like spread investing. And to me, spread investing is the best opportunity of all. So if you ask me if I'm optimistic, I'm super optimistic today.
Yeah.
But you need the capital and you need the fundamental belief and the operating platform to figure out how to maintain income and, God forbid, grow income.